Hello and welcome to Coding Jackpot. So in this video tutorial, we are going to see how we can develop a cascading drop-down list inside a Gridview, and we are going to use .NET 6 and Blazor Server. So we will, at the end of this tutorial, we will have this kind of Gridview structure where we will have at the top, we'll be adding the name, mobile number, country, state, and city. And when you click on add, that record will get added in the grid. If user wants to edit that particular detail, then we simply have to edit the name, mobile number, and we can change the cascading drop down list for a particular record inside the grid view and simply click on update. If we update the record, then the record is updated, and if you want to delete a particular record, then simply that record is deleted. So let's begin with the coding part. So here we have opened Visual Studio 2022. We'll be creating a new project and we'll select Blazor Server app, click on next, and then we'll be selecting .NET 6 long-term support, click on create. So this will create the default Blazor Server app, and here we have opened our SQL Server, and in this we have a demo database already created, demo DB. So inside the demo database will be creating few tables. So the first table is employee info. It has ID, name, mobile number, country ID, state ID, and city ID. So let's create it. And the second is country with the ID and name, and a primary key identity set to 1, 1. And another one we have a state with ID, name, and country ID. And the third last one we have city, and we have like ID, name, and state ID. So let's create these three tables. So these three tables are created. Now inside these three tables we will be inserting few records. Like these are the, you can create records as per your wish, but here we are like creating few entries here. So we have three countries, then we'll create the state. So these six records we are inserting in the state table. Then we at the end we have the city. So likely I have created few records in all three tables. Now in this Blazor app 1 will be creating a folder with the name DB models. So add a new folder, and inside this folder will be we will have the models. Okay, and for that we will need this entity framework core. So let's install these three NuGet packages. So add and manage NuGet packages in this Blazor app 1, and here so we are using database first approach because we have created the database now. Now simply we are creating the entity models. The last one is core tools. So once this all three NuGet packages are installed, we'll check in the dependencies. Okay, so we have all the three NuGet packages installed here. We can close this NuGet package manager, and here in the solution explorer, now we have to go in this package manager console. So on the package manager console, see that you have this default project as the Blazor app 1, and we have to execute this scaffold db context command. So here you have to mention the name of your server and the database name and the output directory where you want the entity models to be created. So we'll copy it and execute it. Once this command is successfully executed, we will have the entity models in our db models folder. Build succeeded. So we can ignore this warning because we are going to remove our connection string from our db context file. It takes the time. Okay, now it got successfully created. So here we have city, country, employee, and state. Four tables and four models for that. And we have the main file db context, demo db context. So here we have this warning. We can simply comment it off, and also we can comment off the connection string because we are going to add the connection string in our app setting.json. So we have opened app setting.json, and here we can see the connection string. So it's the name of the connection string is db connection. Then we have the server, database equal to demo db, and trusted connection equal to true. So we are going to copy it and paste it here. And for this connection string to be used in our code, we'll have to add a piece of code here just below this builder.services in the program file. So we're simply copying it and pasting it here. So here is nothing but builder.services add db context. So we have mentioned the db context, which is nothing but this demo db context, and we are using this use SQL server, and from using the builder.configuration we are getting the connection string. This db connection name should match the connection string name which is mentioned in the app setting.json file. So we'll have to import new namespace. So for this we need the db models path, and to use the use SQL server we need Microsoft Entity Framework core. Fine. So this looks fine, errors are gone. Now on this index.razor page, we'll be removing whatever default we have. And here we are going to add a code section so that we can write our code here. And few namespace we are going to import at the rate using db models. And we're going to inject the db context so that we can use it here. Inject so we have injected this db context over here. Oh, this B is capital, so now it should work. Okay. Now in this in the code part, we are going to use few variables. So let's create the required variables. So here in this code part, we have this 5-6 variables we have. So we have created a list of employee info. This employee info is nothing but this employee info table, and we have named it as employee list. Then we have a single employee. This employee list we are going to use in the grid view, and this employee we are going to use as a part of to create a new record, which will be outside the grid view. So it's a single record. Then we have the master variables for country, state, and city. Then we have a message to display like record saved successfully or deleted successfully. Now we'll create a on-initialized method, and in this on-initialized method we are going to set the employee defaults like employee dot country id equal to 0, employee dot state id equal to 0, employee dot city id equal to 0, and here we are going to have a get master data. So inside this get master data we are going to get the master country, master state, and master city. So it's private, you can make it public also, public void get master data, and master country equal to db context dot countries dot to list. So similarly we are going to have for master state and master city. states and cities. So we have got the data like master, and now in all the three list we are going to add a default select country, select state, and select city at the 0th position. So here in this list like master country, state, and city, we are going to insert a record at 0th position, and it will be a new country with the ID equal to 0 and select country as the tag as the name. And similarly for state we will be have ID, name, and country ID as 0, and for city will be having like ID, name, and state ID equal to 0. So these are the default records which will get populated in the drop down list whenever there is no selection, like if, on first load or initial load we will have this, so that user can select the country, state, and city. Now apart from this, so let's first create the drop down list. So here we are going to add if this employee not equal to null, then we are going to add a div. It's a bootstrap class, and inside this we are going to have the div structure. So we have the name, mobile number. So on this divs we are going to use this bootstrap class for all the 5 columns. Fine. And here we are going to have a label. First one is name, mobile, country, state, city. And at here we are going to have a button in the last div. So it's a plain button, input type equal to button, and value equal to add. And class, this bootstrap class we are adding like class btn primary. So for name and mobile number we are going to take to input text box. So let's add that. So we have the name, we have to use this bind property, and similarly for mobile number it will be mobile number. Now we have to add 3 drop down list for countries, state, and city. So here we have added a select ID equal to ddl country, class form control, value equal to employee dot country ID, and we are using a loop for each item in the master country. So on similar lines we have to add for state and for city. So here it will be like state ID, master state, then here we have master city, and we'll have it as city ID. Looks fine. But for this master state we'll have to add a query here inside this for each loop, and similarly for master city. So let's add that. So here on this master city we are going to add this where clause. So it's like master city dot where, instead of country ID we'll use state ID equal to employee dot state ID, or state ID equal to 0. and same we have to copy it again and put it here for master state. But here the differing parameter will be, for state it is the filtering parameter is country ID, so we have to use country ID, and here also we have to use country ID. So this will get us the records. So we have get master data and all the three records. Let's run and see how it works. Okay, so we have these three drop downs. We have, okay, so here we see like on change of the country we are not getting anything in the city and state, so we'll have to add the on change event for all this drop downs. So let's do that. But we have the basic form ready here, so let's add that on change event we have to add in all the three drop downs. So we'll begin with the first one, country. So here we are going to add this on change, at the rate on change equal to, we have to pass this equal to change event args, and that employee dot country ID we have to add equal to the value. And inside this we have to call another method like on drop down change. So we'll be creating this method, but for time being we simply have to add this method, this event for all three drop downs. So let's go and add it for state, state ID. Let's add that for city. So we can, for city we can remove this external function calling, and for country the output parameter will be country, and for state it will be state. So from inside this HTML part we are calling this on change method, and on change of that event, on change of the drop down list, we are calling this on drop down change. So this method takes the employee, which is the binding object, and also it takes one more parameter like whatever we want to pass. So it discriminates, like for country we are passing, so this it will decide like on this event is called from this country drop down or from the state drop down. So let's create this event on drop down change. The input parameter will be employee info and string type. Fine. So let's name this as model, and let's name this as type. And inside this on drop down change we are going to add few lines of code which will reset the next two drop downs. Like if we change the country, then we want the state and city to get adjusted based on whatever was selected in the country drop down. So here we are going to add the uh, decision making part. So here if you see, if the type is country, then we are resetting the models like state ID equal to 0, and if the type is state, then we are only resetting the city ID to 0, like the default selection. Fine. So let's run it and see. So we have created here this on drop down change for the country and the state. So let's run this application now. Fine. So here we have the drop down list being changed according to the selection of the first drop down. Now let's add a record and display it in the grid. So we already have this add button over here. So on click of this add button, we'll have to add an event, on click event, which will insert a record in our database. So here we are adding this at the rate on click equal to add new record. So we'll add this add new record over here. So we need a new method to be created for this add new record. So we have created this a new method like add new records, and here we have this add new record, and simply we are in adding this db context.employee for add employee. So this employee we have binded to that entire record over here. So if we see this, if it is not equal to null, then we have creating this entire row. So and here we have binded this employee is binded to the drop down, as well as it is binded to the text box. So whatever value selection or record is there, so that these two lines db context.employee info will simply add that employee in the database. And here we are resetting everything to the previous value, like employee name, mobile number, country ID, everything. And here at the end, after adding, we have to call this get employees. So we'll create a method to get employees. Fine. And if you see here at the top of this code, we have this employee list. So whatever employees have been added, we simply have to get it and assign it to the list. So employee list equal to db context dot infos dot to list. So simply we are pulling the records from the employee list and assigning it here. And before assigning it, we simply have to reset it, like we have to make it a new memory allocation, so that like the old records doesn't get repeated. So we'll simply make it new list and get the records. So this get employee list, also get employees, we can call it from here. Once we get the master data, at the end of the master data we have to call this one also, because we on initial load, if we reload the screen, then also we should get the employees. Fine. Now we have to create the grid structure to display the records, the tabular structure. So let's create that. So here we're going to have a table, and inside this t head, and below the t head we have t body, and in the header section we are going to add a table row, and there we have th name, mobile, country, state, city. And inside this table body, let's add a class to this table, bootstrap class. These two classes we have added. Now inside this table body we are going to have a for each loop which will display all the records. So here I have simply copied the code and pasted it. So let's discuss it here. Now if you see inside this table body we have a for each loop which is looping through a table row. Okay, so for each row, for each record there's a single row, and we are looping through this employee which is looping through this employee list. And then we have the select employee, we are passing the I, we're incrementing it to I plus 1, and so the variable for this employee list is nothing but emp. Now inside this table row, whatever structure we have at the beginning, like a single record, that same similar structure we are creating, like input bind equal to employee name dot name, employee dot name. So here we are using employee as the variable because it's a single object. But inside the for loop, inside the for each loop, what we are doing is like we are using this emp. So it's similar like emp dot name dot mobile number. Then we have the similar structure for this country, and here we are using emp dot country id, and we have the similar like on change event where we are assigning the country id to the value of the changed variable. Then we have this master country and similar for structure. Now there here if you see we have created this method which is like on drop down change. So similarly we have to create one more method. I am simply naming it as my method, and here we are passing the employee info and the tag. And for this drop down state we are all passing the employee object and the state as the tag. And similar, it's the exact code whatever we have above. There's no difference, only the difference is of the variable. There we have employee and here we are inside a loop, so we are using emp. And same for the city. And at the top we had one button, here we have two buttons, like one is for update, another one is for delete. And here we are passing the parameter because there was a single record, so here we are passing the parameter using this lambda expression, and we are passing the employee. So we want that particular employee to be updated or deleted. So let's first create this method which is nothing but my method for the drop down change event to execute inside the grid view. So let's do that. So here we can add the same method. If you see this method and this above one, like on drop down chain, they are exactly similar, but here here we are like updating the single model, but here we have to find uh, the from that employee list we have to find that particular record for which the drop down change event has occurred, and we have to find it for that model id and set the state id and country id for that record to 0. Okay, not for all the records in the grid. And similarly for state we have to find the record and change the city id. For country it will be the state and city will change, and for state the city will change, only single record will change. So both are similar methods. Now we have to add two more methods to update and delete. So here we are passing this employee info. If you see this update employee, then it's inside a loop, so we are passing the input parameters as emp. Okay, so whatever is getting looped that we are passing, and similar for this delete employee. So whatever that particular model we are receiving as an input parameter in these two methods, and we are simply executing the db context employee info dot update and remove, and then saving the changes to the db context. And in the message we are showing this record updated successfully and deleted. Once the delete or update operation is executed, we are calling get employees, so we can again get the employees and see like how it, what is the latest record. So let's run it now. So this way like we can update the single record, and also we can delete the single record. Fine, now let's add it. First one, and let's select the country, state, city, and add it. Okay, so here you can see like we got the record but it didn't update properly. So let's see, let's debug it. So here we have the add new. So let's put a breakpoint here. And let's run it again. Oh, first let's check the database whether that record is there or not. Okay, so like there's a problem in binding the data to the grid view. So we have that record inserted in our database. So let's go and see the grid view binding. So we have employee list. So we'll put a breakpoint over here and let's refresh it. So we have the record, proper record, city ID, country ID, mobile number, name, everything is there. So let's go and see what is wrong in this one. Employee list. So the mistake we have to think of is like whenever we add a record, it's not displayed here. So we'll have to move this entire table out of this if clause because that deserves to be out here. And here this is only for the new record. So let's run it now. This should work fine now. So here let's add it demo 3 Sri Lanka Central Tale add. If you refresh it, then this record is there. So on click of add, it is not displayed properly, but if we refresh it, then record is being pulled from the database. Let me check. So here, on adding a new record, it's not getting displayed in the grid view. So what we have to do for that is like we have to create a new instance of this employee. So employee equal to new employee info, and then we have to reset the values, and then we have to get the records. So this should work fine now. Let's run it again. So once the add new record is added, we have to reset the employee info. No, so let's delete the records and let's add demo 4. So now if we see, we are getting this demo 4 5 everything properly. And if we try to update it as like demo 44 and make it as 5 Sri Lanka and update it, this gets updated record successfully. And simply if we see, if we refresh the screen, then this is added here. And let's add demo 5. So it got added here properly. And if you want to delete something, then it can delete it successfully also. Fine. So this was it. So this, like, we have added a cascading drop-down list, and also we have done the CRUD operations outside the inside the drop inside the grid view using cascading drop-down list for each record. So I hope you like this video. If you have any query, you can let us know in the comment box. Thanks for watching.